Good afternoon, folks. Looks like we are live and up and running. So let me get everything switched over. We'll do sort of a sound check since I haven't used this setup in a minute. And we will commence with today's Beatbox Jam stream. All right. You got everything loaded correctly. I am going to turn on a real quick loop I put together as we were loading up. I wanted to start earlier, but turns out moving all of my Steam apps around kind of confused VTube Studio, so it was not loading my normal camera source for my model, which is a little bit annoying, but I got it to work, so I think everything is fine now. But it has been a hot minute since we've done one of these. I should probably look at doing them every other week. It's just been busy with the schedule and things have been all weird lately. But it's good to be back talking about beatbox stuff and hopefully getting some good BGM ideas together. Since it seems like I haven't done anything with the loop in a bit. And I would like to be able to do another large recording dump. We'll see if I have time before the holidays are over to move stuff over to my computer, start planning for future releases, but we'll figure that out later. So for the jam stream today, I figured it would be good to revisit the topic of technicality we'll get to in the technique and sound theory portion of the stream. One of my favorite topics to discuss, and it's been, I want to say, a few streams since we discussed it last. I want to talk a little bit about some of the patterns and speed drill stuff I've been working on, and kind of continue where we left off on previous discussions when it comes to technicality, applying it, and then the whole practice drill aspect of experimenting around with the sound sets and everything like we've discussed before. So we warm up, then we'll discuss technicality. Once we get through this sort of drills and practice discussion, I want to devote the rest of the stream to brainstorming BGM ideas. I do have the synth hooked up per the usual. It's currently off to reduce feedback. But everything else should be good. I'm going to keep an eye on OBS's audio readout here. And make sure my sounds aren't peaking on the mic, and that everything isn't going too high. This is also the first time I've run this setup with the new hardware, but everything should be smooth. We will see what happens. All right. I'll go ahead and clear the loop off. Save this blank file for us to use later in the stream. And we'll go ahead and commence warm up while I keep an eye on the sound levels. I think what I'll do is I'll run through just freestyling for a bit, get the blood flowing to all of the right parts of my face, and we will see what happens next. All right, let's give it a try. And before I forget, I should probably unmute desktop audio for alerts too, which should be enabled. Yeah, I think all that stuff is set up on this layout. So to make sure it's on. All right. Let us commence warm up. Man, my mouth was getting dry towards the end of that. Hey, Red Dragon's here. What's up, Red Dragon? How's it going? Hope you're having a good Friday still. Let me know if I need to tweak anything with sound. I was explaining earlier that I haven't used this setup in a bit, but it looked like the really hard, sharp sounds weren't redlining the mic, but if I need to tweak anything with my levels, let me know so that I don't sound like garbage on the microphone. Sounds fine? Okay. Just checking. We'll go ahead and leave everything where it is. I'll have to recheck things when I have the synth hooked up, but I think everything else will be fine for now. Hopefully you had a good Christmas. The first day back since the holidays. It was low key. All is well over there. Now I'll get ready for New Year's. And then 2025. Going to be an interesting year, I think. right, let me change the caption. We will go technique and sound theory. Dragon says, I don't do Christmas. Oh, okay. Well, I hope you had a chance to chill and relax or do something. All right. All right, there's the caption. Make sure I spelled it correctly this time. Dragon says, I believe Christmas is for kids. Yeah, you mentioned that before when we were doing Elden Ring. I don't really do a sort of large occasion for Christmas anymore. It's just kind of a low key thing with family. But I don't have like a big family here. But it's not like a big production. All right. Moving on to technique and sound theory. I was thinking a little bit over the last couple days on what I wanted to talk about specifically when it comes to the ongoing discussion on technicality. That's going to be the focus of the technique sound theory portion of this part of the stream. And I do not remember what we covered last time I talked about it because it's probably been at least 2 months or so because we haven't done these streams super frequently anymore. I was talking about how I would like to probably do these maybe every 2 weeks or every other week, depending, rather than, once a month. It just depends. Adrian says, Wazzy is failing at Marvel Rivals. Oh, is she streaming now? On a Friday? Was that one of her stream challenges? Even though she plays that. Well, sounds like shenanigans. Well, I think the last thing we covered when we talked about technicality was the pop and click technicality patterns. Again, it's been a while, so I kind of just came up with a bunch of talking points that I wanted to discuss today, and might be a little bit of a recap and kind of an ongoing discussion for what we talked about before. So since the last time we discussed the idea of sound sets and speed patterns, I haven't really come up with anything new. I've just been experimenting with the idea of drilling and working on clean sounds and the consistency and speed, which we talked about before as far as how you apply things like the sound sets when it comes to speed patterns. Again, technicality in beatboxing is not specifically speed patterns, but a lot of times the way people utilize the combination of sounds does involve kind of faster or more rapid patterns when things are put together. So a lot of it tends to become synonymous with speed, although that's not what it means at its core. Red Dragon says, have you heard of the beatboxing plus shamisen music? That sounds familiar. I think I saw that way back when I was first starting out, as I was consuming beatbox content and seeing what was out there. I don't remember who the artists were, but it sounds really familiar. Is that the one where the person is doing the beatboxing and playing the shamisen at the same time? Because that's kind of what I remember. It's been a while. The idea that someone can do essentially two simultaneous instruments at once is pretty crazy. And so I guess the first thing we'll talk about as far as what I've been working on drilling is something I was practicing yesterday because I wanted to be able to kind of demonstrate it for the purpose of illustrating kind of drills and the idea of how to do repetitive practice when it comes to speed patterns, and it's specifically with the TKK because it's the core sound set I feel like I'm the worst at. Maybe it's a little bit equal with the pop click POTO pattern though. We'll talk about that one in a bit. But the TKK, that's I definitely think it's gotten better, especially as I've been trying to drill pretty closely into consistency over the last, year or two since I've been talking about it. But what I was thinking about yesterday was the pattern I've been using, which is different from kind of the sample universal rhythm set that it was probably like 6 months ago now, that I showed off on stream when it comes to how to just use the same rhythm and sound set, but swap out the instruments so you could practice them all the same way and be consistent with the same rhythm, but with different instruments. So real quick, the approximate version I was doing before to show off things like the TKK would have been something like, and that's really just kind of a modified hip hop ish type beat, mid tempo, doesn't really do a whole lot, but it gives you the opportunity to space out or compact the sound sets when you're doing the, and that's the whole point. Whether you're doing it with the TKK or you're swapping out the rim shot snare in that pattern for like a PF. Again, just to recap what we talked about before, you do the same rhythm, swap out the snare. So it'd be, and so on. Likewise, you do it with the inward K, completely different snare, different sound. And I won't do it with every combination, but the idea was for just practicing the sound sets with the same rhythm, but swapping out different bits so that you're practicing the same thing and just getting kind of the muscle memory and being familiar with doing things cleanly and consistently instead of focusing on speed for that type of drill. The Dragon says, opposed to the one I seen in the Discord. Okay. I will check it out. I don't recognize it from the thumbnail. Okay, I'll take a look at it. Some lines. I'll take a look at it later. Thanks for sharing that. So to kind of build on the idea of a specific pattern being used to drill certain sounds, again, focusing on the TKK, what I did was I took the rhythm, instead of going for that kind of mid-tempo, hip-hop-ish, quote-unquote, hip-hop type beat, I went for kind of a more fast drum and bass rhythm using same combination of instruments and same snare with the TKK, uses the rim shot, but specifically designed to be fast, go faster, and work on speed and drilling speed and consistency versus the other one's a bit slower, doesn't really focus on speed, it's more consistency. This one is more speed with consistency. So I wanted to kind of walk through a little bit of how I was drilling with the pattern and using it, and I think it's actually helped a bit because it forces me to be a little bit quicker with it. So this particular one, again, drum and bass type beat, starts off with an intro and then goes decently faster. So let me see if I can recreate it exactly. I should have just written it down. But it starts with a, and this one actually, I should probably chart out breathing patterns a little bit. That's not something I thought about before the stream today. But this one is harder to do because it is faster, and because I haven't thought about where to strategically put breaks for breathing. That's one kind of problem. Usually I have to stop, reset, take a breath so I don't pass out on my feet. But in addition to just the, which is your stereotypical drum and bass type rhythm, this one leaves a bit more room to put fills and improvise a bit with the TKK or any other technicality pattern in between just the repeating. And so the way I've been using it was been trying to maintain the core rhythm. Don't get off tempo with just the, but also thinking about how to fit in longer runs with the TKK, which is how you're getting the thing that sounds kind of like the TKK or TKP chained together back to back. Some variation on a longer speed chain as a fill before it goes back into the main rhythm. In between that and the kind of part you hear at the beginning when it starts up, the kind of intro where it's going, that's just rapid kicks and rim shot. There's no T and other K because it's just the rim shot plus the kick. And interestingly enough, just doing that, and it's rapid single note kicks. Yeah, it's a rim shot plus single kicks just done fast, as opposed to like a triple kick or a fast, like a double bass pedal kick. But if you speed up the rhythm, it becomes double bass kicks, which is why I've been using it as an isolated part to just practice in addition to the full drum and bass rhythm. Because if you take the and you speed it up, again, you're only alternating between two sounds, but there's two different positions. The kick is coming from your lips and mouth pressure. The actual snare rim shot is coming from your tongue mouth pressure. There's no breathing involved. But if you do just kicks chain to the rim shot over and over again, you can actually speed it up, and it works as a way to train moving between those two positions relatively quickly, which is pretty useful. I don't know if anyone else does that specifically because they probably just train full patterns. But if you take that and you slowly ratchet up the speed, you start going from, and I'll see how fast I can do before it just falls apart and gets muddy, but it starts going much faster and you get, that's about as fast as I can do without like changing it to triple kicks or adding in something else to make it the TKK for more of the rapid sounds. But just doing that for maybe 30 seconds at a time, 20 seconds at a time, resetting and doing that, I found enables the muscle memory to kind of solidify, and the idea of going from those two is just second nature now. And it wasn't when I first started learning the technicality pattern for TKK in general, because I don't really use rim shot a ton. I've been trying to use it more just because it's easy to do and it doesn't require air and it's fast. But if we think about variations on that, doing like a BTB triple kick, and that would be kind of tough, like a, maybe do single plus triple. That's a little bit tougher to do, but just the standard one is a pretty good sort of two instrument way to just train speed with just those two sounds. And then transitioning out of that into just the regular drum and bass pattern I did before, and figuring out where to put things like a longer technicality chain in between just the, And so I think if I just keep focusing on that type of speed pattern for now and working it into just freestyle beats, which I'm not actively doing a ton because it just doesn't pop into my brain when someone, on stream pulls the drop a beat redeem. For some reason, it just never immediately pops into my freestyle skill set to use the TKK. So I'm trying to get better with that. So I have a bit more variation in addition to doing things like the zip hat sound, the TKP sound, and all that. So we'll see as things go. Eventually, I would like the TKK pattern to be as second nature as the TKP, which I learned first. And it just depends on what suits the actual beat instead of defaulting to the same one. So we'll see how that sort of develops. But the drum and bass pattern has been good for drilling TKK. And we'll see if it sounds noticeably better next time we check in with that particular type of sound. So the next thing connected to technicality I wanted to talk about is the tongue click sound. I call it the tongue tip click because there's a couple different ways to make a click sound using just your tongue and pressure in your mouth. There's kind of the standard back of the tongue click, which is, I think most people know how to do that or have done it at some point, even if it's not related to beatboxing. Just using the back of your tongue to pop down from the roof of your mouth with some pressure, and you're getting a pretty simple sound, but the more you develop it, the stronger it gets and the faster it can get when it comes to beatboxing. We've talked a little bit about that one. There is the hollow clop, which is not using any pressure. It's purely tongue muscle. I don't know what the name of the muscle on the underside of your tongue is, but you know where that kind of tendony looking thing that anchors the bottom of your tongue to the floor of your mouth? It's kind of in that area, but clop just is you smacking your tongue against the bottom of your mouth. And when you initially try it, it won't make any sounds because no one does that normally. It's not a standard muscle movement when it comes to your mouth. But if you practice just dropping your tongue and smacking it to the floor of your mouth over and over again, it develops strength over time, and eventually you get the audible sound. And if you hollow your throat, you get the hollow clop, and that's what gives it that more kind of echoey sound. Mine's not super strong. I do try and train it every once in a while. I should do it more. But you can mix that up with other things like pops to get more rapid sounds. I don't do it a ton. I need to work on some more clop-based technicality patterns too, because you can do some really nutty stuff with that sound. Things like pairing it with like a tennis ball pop. You can get the sounds to actually sound to the ear almost identical if you can get your clop strong enough so that it sounds the same as the pop, and you can make it sound like you're doing it in rapid fire. Beatboxer from Japan named Kohei has insane pop and clop and technicality speed patterns in general. I hadn't really seen someone do that combination well until I saw him do it. But the specific variation of the tongue click I want to talk about is the one that uses kind of the tip of your tongue right behind your teeth in the upper roof of your mouth and the hard palate area. So it's not right up against your teeth. It's a little behind, further towards the back of your mouth. But it sounds like, compare that to that one sounds a bit sharper versus the tongue tip click sounds a bit more kind of lighter and hollow. And if you just change the shape of your mouth, it changes how much it echoes or sort of its pitch too. That's how you can go from low and you can change its pitch a bit, make it sound a little higher just by changing how much space there is in your mouth when the sound is resonating. And so to explain why I'm mentioning this particular sound, you would have heard it when I was warming up briefly in the BGM snare, just simple beat I was doing. But I've been trying to use the click as a good way to layer on top of simultaneous sounds because it doesn't require any air. It doesn't really block the airway a ton. If you're doing basses and you go completely nasal with the sound, then whatever you're doing with your teeth, tongue, or anything will not impair the noise as it comes out. So just adding a simple click run on top of sounds adds kind of another layer, and it sounds more intricate and complex to the ear. So a good example would be, you could do it with PS snares, doesn't need to be a BGM specifically, but if we had a bass line, not a throat bass or a vibration bass or anything distorted, just a pure hummed bass line, and we pair that with, say, kick, hi-hat, and snare. Something like in order to add a little variation in addition to just what you're hearing with the kick and the snare and the bass itself, a really good way to practice is to add that click on top of it so that, again, it's adding another sound layer and it sounds more complete as far as the beat goes. But the trick is kind of training yourself to have the sound for the tone. Again, it's not distorted, so you're not applying any sort of vocal pressure or anything. It's just a hummed note, but you have to direct it out of your sinus cavity, because if you're directing out of your mouth, everything you're doing with the snare, your tongue, the kick, and everything else is going to cut off the sound. And so to kind of illustrate, then I'll break down specifically what I'm talking about. If we take the same sound, we add the click, we get something like, and again, because everything is kind of divided up into where the sound is traveling out of and where the additional complementary sounds are coming from, I'm not an expert at layering. It's a little bit easier for me to do it with some of the more distorted basses because I can push a little bit more. But the idea is to put things together so that it sounds as seamless as possible. It involves doing things like a mouth pressure PF instead of the regular breathing one. So might not be the easiest example, but that snare, it's easier to do with BGM because it doesn't use any lungs at all. And it's only lips. So it's completely separate from the way the sound is being produced with the, again, hummed note. So if we kind of think back to what I did when I was freestyling earlier, warming up, I did something like, and so that's a better example of kind of layering, because I can use a snare that completely is separate from the airway and the air supply. So you're getting the note, you're getting the kick, and you're getting the click and the snare, but they're all being layered. So instead of them being kind of staggered, they're more or less being done at the same time. And getting good at that is a really handy way to add complexity to your patterns and routines. Again, I'm not an expert at it. I've been trying, especially over the last year, to really focus on layering and getting comfortable putting all those sounds together so it sounds natural. I could tell you when I first started beatboxing, now it's been 5 years now, since 2019, coming up on 6 years soon. I didn't really focus on layering and putting sounds together, and I kind of wish I had, to get a bit more of the kind of muscle memory and get used to the idea of having sounds coming from different parts of the mouth anatomy so that you can put them all together at once and have them being more or less simultaneous to the ear. And so for the idea of technicality, kind of going back to the main topic of discussion, structuring the layering, especially with something like the clicks, which for me at least, it kind of blends pretty well with the pops, which is why we came up with the POTO pattern. It uses the pop and the tongue click, tip of the tongue click. Those two in a 4 set, 1 2 1 2. And I think definitely over the last year, again, wouldn't say I'm an expert at it compared to some other folks who have insane pop and click patterns for technicality, but I've definitely gotten better at doing it faster. I just need it to be a little bit louder, cleaner, and continue to build the speed. Because if you think about just going back and forth between the two, 1 2 1 2, being able to do it that fast, I don't think I could do a little more than a year ago when I first put the pattern together. Hopefully within like another year's worth of practice and just drilling that over and over again, because that practice pattern is easy. It's just that forever. Started slow, of course, when I was just getting comfortable with putting the sounds together. Kind of sounds like a ping pong match or like a really weird metronome. It also helps to practice that more because it builds strength in different parts of your lips. Because for most people who haven't really done a pop sound, I think most people can do it audibly. Once you know kind of how to do that, which is a really simple sound I'm sure everyone's done at some point in their life. Once you've practiced it for a bit, it will get louder because it might be softer, but I think everyone can do it more or less. But the more you practice it and actually build lip strength in addition to all the other things in beatboxing, if you're learning, a lot of things do put pressure on the embouchure for wind instrument players. That same area does build because a lot of exercises in beatboxing require lip strength, whether it's kind of more of the corner with the lip rolls, or even being able to make enough pressure to get an audible sound to come out with like a PF snare, and then, or more strenuously, the spit or BGM snare. That's probably the one that's going to build lip strength the most when you're first learning, if you do nothing else, except for maybe if you do a lot of lip roll practice. But for how I do the BGM, which doesn't puff out the lips like some people do with an air pocket, it's much more tight and it's just pure pressure, which I know Footbox G does that. People tend to be kind of split in beatboxing on how they learn the BGM. I learned how to do it with no air pocket, so it's just pressure, and I think that allows it to be a bit sharper and cleaner, and you could potentially do it faster too. So the actual sound comes out like. But anyway, to tie it all together, I think practicing for the POTO, if you're gonna kind of put that together, and again, I didn't invent the pattern. It's been out there in the wild forever. It's just a chain that I wrote down for the ease of learning and slotting into the stuff that I've been doing. Taking them and then just ratcheting its speed up over time and trying to get faster with it, but still have it be clean is also really good. Just drill training. Good way to do it. Get a metronome. I'm not going to bother turning mine on the loop, but set a pretty reasonable slower BGM or BPM to start, and then ratchet it up over time. So you start with them, and I'll just incrementally increase the speed without stopping it. Just explain what I'm doing, but we'll start with. You can tell as it gets faster and I start to lose volume, that's sort of the building point to kind of improve and train over time. Ideally, I'd like to be able to have it be just as loud and be fast at the end, or if not faster, and not losing the sound and having it fade out or get muddy. Another thing that's also pretty helpful for learning and training a pattern for technicality is to add in a transitional additional sound in between those two. I like to use an F sound. You can call it an F hat. It functions pretty much the same way. And it allows you to kind of do like a reset, same way the TKK, which has 3. If you take the POTO and go like F POTO, or in between POTO, POTO, F in between it, as it resets the 4 count pattern, you get something like. for me, having the F there allows me to chain the POTO faster. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because I'm used to it. But if we're taking them and we add the F in between, you'll hear all of a sudden it chains into a more rapid, it becomes a 5 count at that point. POTO, F, POTO. So 4 and a 5, or 4 with 1 in between. And I definitely couldn't do that particular sequence of sounds that fast a year ago. So even if it's doing the most mundane and menial of tasks, which I find myself doing a lot, I might be sitting there just mindlessly going, which sounds silly, but when if you're doing it subconsciously without really thinking about it a ton, then it becomes second nature. So when you need to use it on command, you don't have to think about it as much, and your muscle memory is what you're building when you're practicing and drilling. Since beatboxing is a grind, we talk about that a lot whenever we discuss techniques, or even putting together patterns, putting together routines, or just developing sounds in general. You have to just grind away at repeating the sounds over and over again and getting better with them, and they do improve over time. Grab some water real quick. So in summary, for kind of the discussion of technicality, it's kind of unique compared to other sounds, I think, because you kind of develop a combo or a sound set. You say, hey, I like that set of sounds. I want to get better at it. And I want to practice just over and over drilling that, whether it's, TKK loops over and over again to get the ability to do it rapidly and do it cleanly in like a cycle. Or same thing with the POTO. But in addition to just mastering just the sound set, and I don't think I'm mastering the sound sets except for maybe the TKP, which I could do underwater, upside down in my sleep. The next sort of layer and development level from that is, okay, how do I start combining those together to make longer, more intricate chains that kind of play off each other? And that's sort of where I'm trying to get to as far as these newer sound sets. The POTO, that one is interesting because it's done in somewhat differently from any of the other ones. The TKP and TKK chain together fairly easily because they're more or less done in the same position. It's just a slightly different combination of sounds. The TKP ends on a P or B sound, and TKK ends on a sharp snare. But you could take the, again, that's the first triplet technicality pattern I learned when I was first starting out. But you take the and combine it with the, you get something like, and it's not a true triplet combination. It's sort of mixing them in between, adding things like sort of an irregular kick to restart the pattern. But instead of just having access to a triplet or chain triplet over and over again, now you're taking the combination and sort of chaining it into a different order and rearranging it a bit so that it becomes a longer pattern to be able to use in a rhythm in a song, which is something else that I've been practicing. It sounds pretty much like what you just heard me do a second ago, taking the one set and the other set and then sort of fragmenting them apart and then re-stitching them all together in different orders and playing around with, what if we had kicks first, or we lead with an F into the TKK or FTKP, any different permutation in those. It really can be kind of infinite when it comes to how you want to rearrange the sound. And I think the more different ways you put them together, the more versatile your beats become as you sort of file them away mentally into your sound bank or sound inventory, I think we called it, which we haven't done in a while. We should probably revisit that at some point on one of these jam streams. I haven't really added any sounds. I haven't learned a new sound in a while. I've mostly been trying to get better at the ones I know. At some point, we'll definitely be talking about inward bass. That's the one sort of elusive technique that I never feel is good enough to be able to talk about on stream. But I have been working on it, and I've been trying to train a little each day instead of whenever I remember to do it, to be able to do the inward bass more on demand and do it cleanly like all the other ones I know. But it's gonna have to be its own stream completely because of the technique. I've talked a little bit about it before, but uh, I said this year I wanted to be good enough at it to dedicate a whole jam stream to talking about it, but I don't think it's there yet. I can do it, but it requires a lot of warm up, and it's not as powerful as or deep as I would like. So if I did it now, I can make the sound come out and you'd be able to hear it, but it wouldn't illustrate kind of the use case for it. I think inward bass is very good for low, kind of aggressive drop type dubstep-ish type beats where you need a really low type of resonant subharmonic-ish type sound, and it's very strong on the mic. Probably one of the most forceful and speaker shaking of the basses that you can really do outside of things like a sub bass or like an inwards lip roll. That one, and the one I've been trying to work on and develop a bit more is vocalized chest, because I seem to default to throat bass or a lower vibration bass more often than not when I ever get a beat redeem. And rather than be pigeonholed into one or two types, there's so many other variations that have a lot more potential to do different things. And so working on vocalized chest bass and inward is sort of my higher priority to-do list for the next year of practice and beatboxing. One, being able to do the inward bass on command consistently and cleanly, and two, applying more of the vocalized chest to everything I do to give more of that lower end resonance. But they're definitely works in progress. So rather than try and learn a new sound or anything like that, I still have plenty on my plate to get better at. So in the next year, if we think about plans for 2025 and beatboxing, I think I want to try and push a little bit more on everything I've been doing. I need to not get complacent and make it a point to drill and practice every single day. I have a lot of downtime where I can be working on beatboxing stuff just kind of subconsciously, like I was talking about. But that doesn't really mean there shouldn't be more dedicated practice sessions too. So I think I'd like to use these jam streams as a way to kind of check in, and you guys can sort of keep me honest when it comes to making sure that I'm actually pushing forward and developing a lot of this stuff. Since, you know, if we only ever talk about it once every other month, it's probably not going to be that significant versus a couple times a month. You can say, hey, we need to be able to show progress and be able to have a discussion about where techniques are going or how things have been progressing. And like we've talked about before, if I come up with other ideas for effective drills for each of the techniques, whether it's technicality, basic sounds, what have you, if I could think of ways to actually advise or recommend, rather, a way to practice it effectively because it worked for me, then that's what I'll definitely bring to these discussions. So if people have questions and people want to know, hey, I'm trying to learn beatboxing and I'm working on this sound, what would you recommend for a way to practice or drill it? Then I'll have something on hand. And I know folks here in the community aren't shy about asking me questions. So by all means, if you folks are interested in learning more about beatboxing or getting into it, it doesn't have to be on these streams either. You guys know that. We could be doing any manner of gaming or what have you, but if you just have a burning question about beatboxing, just ask me whenever, or ask me on Discord. All right. So I think that will do it for a discussion on technique and sound theory. We went through the two major practice examples that I wanted to talk about today, specifically the TKK example and the POTO examples, and the idea of putting things together. If nobody has any immediate questions, what we can do is transition over to BGM brainstorming, and I'm going to have to dust the rust off because I haven't sat down to work on anything with my loop in a bit. But I would like to come up with some ideas for future BGM project tracks to be released at a later date. So what we can do is let me rearrange my sound setup. I gotta just plug my mic back into my Scarlett and turn on the other sound source so I can talk and work with the loop station at the same time. So let me do that, and then we will get into some BGM brainstorming. All right. So it should be audible on the Scarlett. If I take the boosts off the loop station and turn on the synth, then that should be audible as well. All right, why is my sound not coming through the loop? That's why. That's weird. I don't know what reset my sound source. Okay. Well, everything should be set up. Turn my mic sensitivity down there. Make sure everything on the playback sounds good. Okay. All right. So for the first one, I was thinking we go back to kind of a more mellow, chill type of vibe. I don't know when the next kind of chill release is going to be. It'll definitely be later next year. Might be around the same time as this one. This year it was summer. Release schedule for music next year is going to be different as far as what I'm working on. But I think we're due for kind of a more upbeat electronic one first. We'll see, because the next EP that's going to be due out next month is going to be more kind of a mix, but mostly kind of upbeat electronic stuff. So that might fill the role of a higher energy release, and then I got some other stuff in between. So by the time we get to maybe spring or early summer, it'll be time for another chill release. So we'll kind of be building towards that. I've got a bunch of recorded stuff that's on my computer now. I can use at least almost a dozen tracks that are on the loop that haven't been recorded off of it yet. I just need to sit down and do that. But let's set up kind of a simple but chill rhythm. And maybe use the jazz kit. I was thinking about doing kind of a mix of like kind of a hip-hop-ish beat with the rim shot, but we've done that a lot. We can use this jazz snare and then maybe layer on another snare and or a rim shot to give it a bit more of a sharper blended sound. Now, as far as the rhythm goes, that's not bad. Let's see if we can get that to record cleanly. Maybe I should hit the button. That would help. We can add in a light hat run on top. That's almost inaudible. We can make it louder than that. That's kind of an interesting way to switch it up a little bit. Have the hat run stop kind of in the middle and then come back. Now we talked about layering in a rim shot on top of the regular snare. Pretty subtle. Because it's so subtle, it more or less sounds like you're striking the snare head and hitting the rim slightly at the same time, so it blends. Okay. Now, bass line. We can throw on guitar to bass to boost the low end a bit. I'm thinking we go sustained bass notes. Maybe not that low. I guess this is going to sort of determine the mood that we set for the track. If we do descending notes, it's going to sound a bit more kind of moody and dark. If we go up, then it might sound a bit more neutral. Start lower. then we start low, go up, and then kind of step back down. Could layer in strings, same note progression, but drop the volume down a little bit. In fact, maybe even lower than that so you can barely hear it. Are you guys able to hear the playback all right? I didn't ask when I started. But is the loop track still audible? Are you able to hear it over me talking? If not, let me know. I have it about 60%. I don't want to be completely drowning out me when I'm talking. All right, let's look at the high melody. First of the synths to record is loop track 3. This is on eighth notes. I have it on a slice. Thinking we go slice delay. Slight delay, and don't turn it up too much. This is a couple octaves up for sort of a complementary melody. We can go even higher and not follow the same note progression. That might work. Let's try that. Oh, that's too high. That actually worked out, I think. It starts a bit higher than I originally thought, but alright, let's see what we can add to kind of build out the rest of the either melodies or like harmonies, adding to the bass line and the first synth track. First, let's find an instrument. Turn the effects off. Could put chords in. That just steps down every other. I don't know if I want to do just two. What if we have it sustained one note chord? We could put a little bit of delay on that. Maybe not delay, maybe filter. Hey, Ladybug's here. What's up, Ladybug? Welcome to the jam stream. We are tinkering around with ideas for BGM tracks. I hope you were doing all right. Hope you had a good Christmas, if you celebrate Christmas. Alright, if we put a little bit of distortion and filter over the note, let's see what that does. Okay, that might sound better. That's one step. I think we need to go two. Ladybug says, sounds good. No, I don't, but it was a very nice chill day for sure. How about you and your family? Oh yeah, I was telling the chat earlier that I don't really have much family around here, so Christmas isn't not a big production. It's pretty low-key and chill. Not a big spectacle, but it was good to just kind of have some downtime. We tend to do more of a thing for New Year's Eve into New Year's Day. That'd be next week. Okay, I think I know how I want to change that. There we go. That's not the filter effect. Ladybug says, understandable. Same here. Not much going on, but I'll enjoy a day off from work. Yeah, I hear that. It's been pretty bananas at my job over the last week. It unfortunately does not slow down around the holidays, but I will worry about that Monday. Okay, so we've got four tracks recorded. Think about what we can put on the last one. If we mess around with the track level effects, we can actually add some filtering over the whole thing if we wanted to. Oh, I like that filter better. It'll give it kind of a more kind of muted, almost like a radio distortion. Okay, let me save what we've done so far. Haybug says, I feel a run into the ground. We ramp up during holidays. Yeah, I hear that. My job, I'm not going to get too into the weeds. You folks probably will be bored to tears hearing me talk about my job, but it's not cyclical, kind of like a retail cycle or anything like that. It's just a constantly escalating cycle, which is a little bit unusual. But the last few years specifically, the general model for my job has not been to like ramp up, ramp down, ramp up, ramp down. It's just up more, up more. And I've been losing a lot of people on my team, which makes things rather difficult when you have a lot of work to do, but not a lot of people to do it. But as my old man says, the paychecks keep showing up and can't really complain. All right, let's look at the instrument list and see what we can potentially add as a final complementary sound set. And then we'll look at how we're going to actually structure this thing. Might be able to do something with that. Could up the speed of the slicer. Maybe go panning delay to get this to move around the sound channels a bit. This isn't the note I think I'm going to use. I'm just testing the effect. We could do a run like that. Have to kind of place where it's going to go though. Ooh, we could go. That might be a good alternate synth melody. Whoop. Which one would it take the place of? Probably this one. Step down. I don't know if I like the step down. Let's record it with just one repetition without the step down and see how it sounds. I don't know why it stabbed so hard on the first note though. That's not what I wanted. What I'm thinking is we have that run and we drop it way in the background so it's just soft, but you still hear it. Okay. Okay. I do think that clashes a bit with the main synth line. So probably the way to do it would be to have them swap in and out. So that's 3 and 5 swapping in and out. All right, let's save that. Now, structuring the actual track for recording, we could start with the bass line, or we could start with the alternate synth, actually. Or we go really crazy with it and start with the run. Bring in the bass line. Fade out the 5th synth. First synth. Second synth. We have a filter transition, and when this comes off, we're going to swap the synths for 3 and 5. We'll get one more cycle. Now, outro. Maybe we have the beat drop out, and then the bass line and the secondary synth stay. We bring back the first synth. The run goes away when the beat drops out, and then we end with just the kind of melodies, no rhythm, and fade out from there. That is an option. Oh, you're working on emulator stuff on the Vita itself? That's kind of cool. Is it for other systems, or is it for emulating other things from PlayStation? I still have my Vita. It does not hold a charge for very long, but it works. Unfortunately, one of my micro SD cards that had all of my saves for my entire like PSN library that I had on my Vita, one whole card just decided to not read data anymore. I lost some very valuable saves that I might have backed up on my computer. But yeah, I haven't fired my Vita up in a while. It was a good system. It's a shame it didn't have a lot of support. All right. So save the stuff that we've recorded so far. Before we move on, I'll open the floor up to the chat. If you folks have an idea what to name this thing, then I will give you folks free reign to suggest some names, and I'll write them down. or a name. Where is my BGM document? There you are. Yeah, it was a while ago, Ladybug. I just on a whim decided to recharge my Vita and see what was on it. I think I lost my Dissidia 2 save. I think that's what was on the one main memory card. There's a couple other things on there. I know my old PSP saves I did back up on my computer. I just have to go figure out where they went. Hopefully I didn't lose my Dragon's Crown save. That was probably like 200, 300 hours. Ah, the emulators for an emulator handheld. That's cool. I think I didn't have anything homebrewed on my Vita. I had it on my PSP a long time ago. I used some homebrew stuff in order to play an English patch for Monster Hunter Portable 3rd, which did not come out in English. And in order to get an English patch, I had to jailbreak some stuff on the PSP. But mostly just did everything legit on the Vita because I didn't want to be bothered with digging through the bowels of the internet to find stuff for it. But I'm still kind of pissed I lost those saves. Alright, I have my document here. I'll give the chat a minute if anyone wants to suggest a name for the BGM track. If not, that's all right. I can always come up with something later. I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but usually I'll open it up to the chat. Some folks hanging out on stream want to suggest a name for the song, and then we queue up what we're gonna move on to for the next one. All right, let me do one last save. I'll leave the offer open too. Folks, come up with a name and want to throw it out. I can just put it on my list. Ladybug says, sounds kind of wavy. I'm thinking waves. Okay. Yeah, the filter effect definitely gives it sort of a warbling effect. I will say that I have a song that has the word waves in the title already. It's from like 2 BGM packs ago, Clean Space Waves. So if we could think of a variation on the word that's not just the word waves, then we could definitely incorporate that. We could kind of build off the idea of like the oscillating sound and do something like sine wave. Make it one word. That would make it so that it doesn't sound duplicative with the other one we've got. You think of like how the pattern on a sine wave looks with things oscillating, up and down. All right, let me create a new file here. What I'll do, or where's my list? Let me grab my list now. I'll put sine wave in as a placeholder for now, unless we think of something else. Okay. New track. Let's do something a bit more higher energy. Maybe we go for kind of a dance-ish, like electronic type sound. Something that's definitely got more pickup to it. What we'll do is we'll set the bass tempo and BPM for the track with a kick, and think of how we want to actually structure it. We could go standard 4/4. And we could add a triple in there too. That might make things interesting. Ladybug says, kind of imagine myself walking down a retro city street with all the activities the residents are doing is muted. Busy town, but somehow it's peaceful or something like that. Ah, I see. So kind of like a screened out distortion, like a busy environment, but something that is muffling it so that you're not bombarded by all the sounds, so it becomes more mellow and peaceful. We could do. Let's see. You'd think I'd have a better idea of all the track names I have, but the reality is because we've done so many releases and I don't go back and actively listen to my songs a ton, I have to consult my master list of stuff to make sure I don't repeat a name or use something. I'm trying to think of a good way to kind of represent the muting you're talking about. Hmm. Think about that. Something to pair with the word sine wave. All right. So establish the rhythm. Let's see if I can do that triple. Oh, I got lucky. We want to go on the beat for the hat or off beat. Okay, we've done some similar. I need to make sure we don't just duplicate a rhythm again. Now we need to add a snare. We go totally off beat and we've created a polka rhythm. Thinking we'll put some echo or some delay on the actual clap, but make it really subtle. That's about there. Okay. The very last snare is slightly offbeat. That's better. All right, bass line. I'm thinking we cut a bass tone, but use the slicer to make it a bit more rapid. All right, be a little careful not to duplicate some other ones we've done, but I like the rhythm. I don't know if I like that instrument though. Oh. I want something that sustains and doesn't fall off. I think that'll do it. I'll start in a different spot. Ooh, that's not bad. We're going for kind of like a techno clubbish type feel. Okay, that could work. Alright, let's see what else we can layer on there. Ooh, strings actually might sound better than what I just added. In fact, that might sound even better than the regular bass line. Yeah, I think I like the way that sounds better than without the synth bass. It has that really kind of sharp stinging on the right first note. What's causing that? Is it the slicer that's causing that? You could hear the actual melody note. It sort of peaks in sound right in the middle. Huh. Oh, it's because there's a bit of oscillation on the actual string sound. You hear it, it gets just a wee bit louder, so the actual slicer is causing that part to kind of bump up in volume. I don't think I can do anything about that. I don't know if I up the attack on the actual slicer, it sort of balances out a bit. Ladybug says some names more on the simple side could be muted sound wave, static sound wave, melodic sound wave. Static sound wave sounds pretty good. let me put that on the list that way I don't forget in case it gets lost in chat. Now, this is going to be a really primitive way to verify this, but let me go into my BGM list and just make sure I haven't used the word static before. I don't think I've used Soundwave on anything up till now. I have a main database spreadsheet of all my track names, but I don't want to bother pulling it up in Excel. Okay, now we're good on both static. Yeah, static Soundwave is fine on its own. I'll save it for now on the list. If you think of something you like better, Ladybug, just drop it in chat. I'll see it. All right. I think I was too slow on the step up. There we go. I wonder if it's something's muddying the actual slicer. Huh, that's weird. Set it about there and redo that. Okay. We'll leave the bass line and the beat. Let's move on to the first melody. You could go for chords, string chords. But do I want to use that particular string instrument is a question. That sounds a little bit less metallic. Two step, two chords, one step rather. Nah, we did that in the last one. I was thinking about filter again. What about half phaser? We could add a flanger. It'll give it a bit more of a resonant sound, but not make it quite so kind of hollow and tinny. Okay, let's add in the chord and pair it with the bass and see how we like it. Or I could miss the notes. Very professional. thinking the mixing should have the melody, the string melody, kind of close with the bass line, leaning towards having the bass line be a little bit louder. I could also see if, actually, hold on. Let me see if another string, like even this string instrument, doesn't have that weird kind of spike in the audio when the slicer's on. It is bugging me a little bit. Let's turn that off for a sec. It doesn't do that weird audio spike. This string preset instrument might work a little better. Okay. Yeah, I think that sounds better. We'll just re-record the bass line. Okay, good. Let's move on to the next layer. Fourth synth. The choir. This one is just called Choir Ah. Name checks out. This particular synthesizer has a whammy bar on it. You can pitch shift things really quickly. If you apply that effect to the ah choir, it sounds like someone is being jerked around while they're trying to sing. Not really functional for an electronic track. Let's see what else we got besides just these choirs. Oh, there's another one in the preset. This one is called Voice Ooh. Kind of hard to hear the actual choir. Orchestral hits. One of the most meme-worthy sounds ever to be introduced into any sort of music, ever. What I'm thinking is we have a run, kind of like we did in the last one, but moving in a different direction. I'm just trying to think of a good instrument to actually use. Ooh, we could use 329, my favorite. This is with the same 16th note slice. Yeah, actually seems to fit. think what we can do is we can double octave this. Let's do it on the lower register first. Now we add the higher version. Could put a drop in here if we wanted to. We have to kind of stop it in the right rhythm though. And we'd have to think of where we want to take the drop effect off. That was not at the right spot because the track itself keeps playing even though it's being repeated. So it doesn't stop the progression of the track. It keeps going, but it's recycling the same thing over and over again. There you go. That's where we'd have to do it. Regret not recording that hi-hat on the rhythm a little lower. I can't change it because it won't let me undo 2 layers below. That's okay. It's not that distracting. Let's go. Oh, Jesus. We got a raid. Toxicure, the party of 22, Wazzy and crew. What's happening, folks? Welcome to the jam stream, where beats are successfully boxed and occasionally we make quote-unquote music. Worm says, we've come to steal your nuts. Not my nuts. I might need those. Welcome, welcome, folks. What were you guys doing today? Oh, yeah, Marvel Rivals. I heard you're having some difficulty in Marvel Rivals, Wazzy. My sources tell me you were having some troubles. But hopefully your stream went well. drop the volume down on this so I'm not being drowned out by my own beats here. We are working on a more upbeat electronic dance type track here. Wormass, Raku, how are your bones? My bones are okay. I think my entire lower half of my body is shot, so I will most likely be in a wheelchair in the next 10 years. But other than that, I'm alright. I have bad joints. The entire lower extremities of my joints are not great. Upper is okay for now. I'm sad, sorry to hear that. Nah, it's alright, I'm old. That's what happens. But it's all good. Alright. Let me put the rest of the tracks on so you folks can actually hear what we've been working on here on the stream so far. Worm says, now take an old man nap. Good night, Uraku. Don't let Wazzy murk me later. Wazzy's not going to murk anybody. But have a good nap. Thanks for jumping on, Worm. I will talk to you later. Get sleep. Drink water. Nope. Guess wrong again. I need another measure. Another measure to properly reset it for the beat undrops. That should probably save my work, I think. I don't want to lose the last 2 tracks we've done. Here, let's do that. So those of you folks coming over from the raid who might not have seen me do one of these streams before, just to kind of explain what we're doing here and where all the sounds are coming from. In fact, let me actually demonstrate what I'm doing. I am working on a loop station, which is my sound device whenever I'm doing one of these streams. And my loop station is hooked up to my synthesizer, which you can hear right here. And so anything I play on the synthesizer, I can capture on the loop. Now, because it's already synced to a beat, we'll see if it actually works. But if I do something like... yeah, it's going to sound a little weird because it's set to a certain BPM already. But basically, how I construct all the tracks that we work on here on stream is I record each layer or each loop track of 5 by doing like either rhythms, melodies, or whatever else I noodle around with here on the synth, and play them all back together, which is how you get this track. So if we break it down by specific instrument track, here's the rhythm. We were going for kind of a techno dance club-ish. I don't know if clubs sound like this, but then we have the bass line. Let me drop the volume down a little bit so it's not too loud. Let me bring in some strings. So while each of the individual loop tracks that have been recorded are playing, they just repeat over and over again. But what I can do in real time while everything is looping, I can turn off different tracks, so I can cut out the beat. And then turn on or re-add in other ones. This is the fourth track that has this sort of rapid synth run. And what I was doing earlier was messing around with the track level effects in addition to the individual loop inputs. There's a billion different things that I can do to manipulate the sounds, but I can also add in effects at the track level. So if we wanted to filter it out, this is applying a middle filter. What I did poorly earlier, kind of illustrate a drop using the beat repeat. What this does is this takes a certain set measure within each of the loop tracks that are actively going and just repeats it over and over again, kind of like you're cycling something on a turntable. But if we up it a little bit, that's how you essentially do a drop with the way these are constructed. You just have to actually time it correctly. All right, let us save our progress. What we'll do, especially since we have folks coming over from the raid, I was telling the chat earlier, we always open up the floor when we're working on these on stream to the chat to offer up names for these. These tracks are going to go into my future BGM releases. So I'm kind of happy with this one the way it is. I'll think if I want to put anything else on the fifth and final loop track at some point. But I will open the floor up to the chat to suggest any names. I got my document right here so I can write them down. If you got any suggestions for what to call this thing, feel free to drop them in the chat. God, that'd be an incredibly annoying thing to put into one of the layers. Put it really low in the mix so that you can barely hear it. I'm not actually going to leave that in there, but it'd be funny to have. It's not looping cleanly, but it's just really low, incessant two-note thing moving back and forth, like an alarm that you can hear just slightly out of earshot. You can't get to it, but you can hear it, and it'll drive you nuts as the volume goes up and down. Yeah, that'd be terrible. No one would ever listen to my BGM tracks if I did something like that. Another interesting effect that I've done on a couple ones so far is to actually take the slicer effect, which cuts up the sound input by a set rhythm depending on the pattern you use, and it makes it sound like it's fragmented. You can do that on inputs, which is how I did certain instruments that we've put together so far, but you can also apply it over everything that's playing at once, which makes it sound like the entire track is being chopped up, which could be an interesting effect, but I don't know if I want to actually use it for this. Alright, let me go ahead and save one last time. I will leave the offer on the table for any name suggestions, but you drop everything down, let's play it in the background so it's not dead silence. We are getting ready to wrap up, so let me take a look at my raid list while we let the track play in the background. Oh hey, Lib is online. I have not had a chance to raid them in a while. I think they just went live earlier. Okay. Let me cue that up. We'll go see how the bear's doing. Ladybug says, sorry I was away for a lot of this part, so I haven't thought of any name ideas yet. Oh, that's okay. I wouldn't worry too much about it, Ladybug. You can always drop suggestions in the Discord too, which, let me actually link the Discord. Let's see, well, let me do it from here. I always forget we have a Discord, and I never remember to link it whenever we get raided. There we go. If you folks feel so compelled to come over and hang out, you'll recognize a lot of the regulars in the Discord from Wazzy's community. It's a lot of the worms as well. Okay. I have the raid queued up, so what we'll do is we will go ahead and go to outro. Mute that. Head over and see what kind of chaos Lib is getting into. It was good to get back into the swing of things with the jam streams. I will try and do them more frequently so we can not only talk about beatboxing stuff, but also collectively brainstorm some ideas for BGM tracks. Once again, shout out to Walsey and the crew for stopping by. It was good for you folks to swing by and hang out a bit. In the meantime, hope everyone has a good rest of your evening or morning. We'll be back tomorrow, noon Pacific. Red Dragon and I will be resuming our ongoing torture session of Elden Ring. So feel free to stop on by if you want to see us suffer as we get hopefully closer to the end of the game. But yeah, take it easy, folks. Drink water, and I will catch you in the next one.